I think it was the witnessing of a dream that we could create an agency, an institution, which would be charged with doing one of the most difficult tasks in the social movement sector, which is to herd cats and to identify issues and move those issues and get people behind them. Well, I'd like to tell you that so much change has taken place that all the things that existed back then have been resolved, but most of the things that existed back then exist today. Housing, income inequality, transportation issues that revolve around access. So many of the things that Jobs with Justice work on not only existed then, but exist now and require continued attention. On the contrary, the work that they've done has been enormously successful in terms of moving those goals. But as their success has unfolded, the world around them has created new challenges, and the economic circumstances which existed back then are very different than today. Concentration of wealth and housing certainly was an issue back then, but even more so now, as income disparity has caused not only problems within the family, but also problems with the ability to find housing. So Jobs with Justice has been working on a variety of different issues over the years and has made progress, I think, on all of them. Well, I think back then, as we were looking to try to start building power in the District of Columbia, those of us in the labor movement recognized that we are a collection of institutions largely focused on organizing, representing our members, improving economic circumstances, but we are not part of that social service fabric, the social advocacy. Even though unions do that, their primary focus is to try to organize and to represent the members that are already in the union. Jobs with Justice offered a vision to corral all this power that existed in the advocacy groups around the city that have their own individual missions and goals, but also have a larger vision. And the genius of Jobs with Justice is that they are sort of the umbrella that gathers all these disparate, very worthy goals together and focuses them at any given moment in time on a universal goal that transcends each of the participant organizations' individual goals. And that really is the key value in keeping all of us, labor and all of the important advocates out there in the community, focused on certain things which we can all coalesce around and which we all want to see moved, but don't have the individual capacity to move it. Well, there are obviously so many to try to inventory them all. So I was thinking about this, and I reflecting on two recent things, one of which was incredibly important to people that work in our sector, hospitality, but also kind of an overlay of larger issues and indicative of what DC Jobs with Justice does normally. The two things that I'm thinking about, we recently worked on a thing called the DC Worker Retention Act. And the Retention Act was designed to force employers to bring back people who had previously worked in establishments largely in the hospitality industry, but the legislation extended to a variety of different sectors beyond the hospitality industry. It provides that employers must bring back those people that worked at the establishments prior to the pandemic. And it's sad that we need a law like that, but so many of the employers were intent on getting rid of old employees, getting cheaper employees, getting rid of employees who had accrued benefits, those types of things. And so the work that DC Jobs with Justice did on that was critically important in terms of not only working with us to lobby on the legislation, but bringing along all those advocacy groups and explaining the importance of why knowing that you're going to be able to go back to work is important when somebody is talking to their landlord about whether they're going to be able to make rent in the future. So we were most appreciative of the work that they did on us. I can tell you our members, as they are going back to work, really are thankful for the act, but individual workers way beyond the confines of our membership are going back to work as a result of this, and DC Jobs with Justice played a critical part in that. The other thing I'm thinking about, and these are obviously all kind of pandemic related because that's what I think permeates all discussions now. And this, again, is one of those things, is just an extension of the good work that DC Jobs with Justice does on a regular basis. And that was to not only advocate for funding for individual workers who do not qualify for the normal benefits that come from the government by reason of status, and that could be an undocumented worker, it could be a returning citizen who may not have enough hours of work or any work at all and not be able to qualify for unemployment, and therefore they're left out in the cold in terms of what they can do with government programs and government support. JWJ not only advocated for the funding, which was not an insignificant piece of work, but they acted as, again, an umbrella institution gathering together community institutions who would ultimately distribute the millions of dollars that were allocated to this program. I look at that effort for thousands and thousands of families here in the District of Columbia, and literally the work that was done on that program kept body and soul together. And again, it was not only advocacy from a budgetary standpoint and getting the money set aside, it was the work of getting community-based institutions to be the distributing agencies who knew the families and had regular interaction with them, to know who those institutions are and who the leaders of those institutions are and what the capacities are, and to be able to identify them on short order, and because of the credibility of JWJ, to get them to participate in the program, which was an enormous success. Literally millions and millions of dollars got distributed to families in need who would not and could not qualify for government programs. That's the kind of thing that JWJ does that doesn't get a whole lot of coverage, but it's the type of thing that's critically important in an individual family's life. DC Jobs with Justice is an institution that deserves support because it is a voice of power for working people and the poor in the District of Columbia. And they are so because they have the credibility built over all these years. Well, I think there are a number of different important goals, all of which JWJ will participate in. It is their mission. And As I think about this, I think about it not only in the context of the pandemic and some of the consequences of that. We are headed into a period of time where the law protecting tenants from eviction is in very fluid situation, and the consequences of the expiration of that law are pretty drastic. And I know, because JWJ has been on this issue for a long time, that they will be there for that fight to make sure that people can stay in their homes and that workout agreements can be made with landlords. The other thing that in the labor movement that we are all looking forward to, and again, it is something that JWJ has worked closely with us on before, and that's organizing workers. You see emerging now, workers are fed up. The fact that wages are incrementally going up is not solving their problems. And as someone who has worked with JWJ from the labor movement, we look forward to working with them as workers try to organize and get a union, get a contract, and improve their lives and create power in the workplace. That's what JWJ is all about. And lastly, and this is something I know will occur because it has been the 20-year history of JWJ, and that is to continue to do what they do in terms of identifying issues around which all of us, labor, community organizations, churches, can coalesce and can move as required by the necessity of social change. So I look to the future of JWJ and see a continuation of what they've done for the last 20 years, but also a branching out and a continued expansion of getting all of us, those of us with disparate interests, together under their umbrella to work on things that are important to all of us.